Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Champions Adjust Sports Talk Show. My name is Aaron Machbitz, and you guessed it, this show is sponsored by Champions Adjust, which is my sports performance brand that's centered around our mindset program, the Champions Adjust Mindset Program. So if you need any mindset or mental skills classes, go to champsadjust.com. We normally focus on youth athletes. All of our mental skills classes, again, can be found at champsadjust.com. We also have apparel and merchandise. We also release a podcast episode every single day that's centered around mindset, and we do this sports show once a week. So thank you for being here. This is episode 13 of the Champions Adjust Sports Talk Show. So let's jump right in and start with the fallout from the Luka Doncic trade, right? There was a bond, a real bond between Dallas and Doncic. I mean, and it began with Dirk Nowitzki, excuse me. Dallas fans, watched their first adopted son for more than 2 decades, and he could have left, and he didn't. He stayed. He won the Mavs a championship in 2011. They believed the slogan Mavs fan for life applied to their star players too. That's at least what my boy Joel thought. And they believed that the phrases inscribed on Nowitzki's statue mattered, and that there was a track record, and that in partnership with the organization, Nowitzki had paved that way forward. So Doncic, Luka, was next, really until he wasn't. The past 2 weeks have been very rough for longtime Mavericks fans like my boy Joel and David Bodson, who are longtime Mavericks fans. I live in Dallas, haven't been a longtime Mavericks fan, but I understand that they've been going through the grieving process for the last couple weeks. This is the fallout from the Luka trade. They're still trying to figure out and understand the reasoning behind the trade. Most have watched the Mavericks' handling of the aftermath in total disbelief, just like they were in disbelief when the trade actually happened. The post-trade news conference also was very vague and sort of light on rationale. The explanation about team culture didn't really connect with people. Specifics could have helped, calm frustrations and tension. If it's a new chapter, explain in detail how it might work. That's what fans want to know. People just want to know why. They want to feel like they're involved because they give their time and effort, attention to these types of franchises and sports teams. And so a source that is familiar with the Mavericks thinking had told ESPN that the franchise just could have done better to prepare for the aftermath of the trade. If they could do it again, the source said more people should have been involved in the discussion of how to handle the fallout, but it was difficult because Harrison kept the circle so small. But as sad and really as frustrated as Mavericks fans are, they seem to be honestly happy for Luka. I'm happy for Luka, right? They don't blame him. He's now on a very high profile team in Los Angeles, playing with his childhood idol and maybe the greatest player of all time, LeBron James. With the way Luka was treated on his way out of Dallas, there is also a chance in April there will be an opportunity to say goodbye to Luka. But let's continue to stay on the NBA for a little bit. I want to just talk about Luka a little bit and the fallout and maybe some underlying reasons as to why he potentially got traded to Los Angeles was maybe because the NBA viewership continues to decrease. I think the All-Star game had the second lowest viewership of all time this year in 2025, and maybe sending Luka, one of the top 5 young players in the game to Los Angeles to a high profile team will give more eyes, maybe more international eyes on the NBA as he plays with LeBron. But that's really just, me thinking out loud. There's a lot of people who maybe potentially think that's why he got traded. There's some things going on behind the scenes potentially. But it's really true that NBA viewership has been in decline for a while now. And I'm going to talk about it from sort of a fan athlete perspective. Fans connect to things that are real, to things that are authentic. When they see pride in the team, in the ability to play, when they see intensity out on the court, they vibe with that. That's why so many people now have switched to college basketball, because anytime you switch on a college basketball game, those athletes are going hard. They play with intensity, they play with pride, and they're real because they're playing for something that's bigger than themselves. They're not playing because of all the money. Now, that may be ruined here in the future with college sports, with all this NIL stuff. But for now, college basketball remains pure in its sense that it's about the team. It's about basketball. It's about how we can be better for each other and how we can win the game. When you watch an NBA game, it's all flopping and crybaby, and they barely run across the court, and there's no defense, and there's no real intensity until sometimes when you get to the playoffs, and then the playoffs seem to ramp it up a notch. So people are just not tuning in to these types of lame, atmospheres again, because they connect to what's real. I'm a professional wrestling fan and a professional wrestler, and the most important storylines and the most over storylines with the fans, the one that receive the most praise, are the ones that are the most real, that people can actually connect to, because life is about narrative. It's about stories. And when we can connect to those stories, then we're going to be more invested and more drawn in those stories, whether it's in a professional wrestling realm or in a sports realm. They're both sports entertainment. Sports are entertainment. And so people want to see and go to a show or a sporting event that's real. Not these guys half-assing around the court, lollygagging around, not playing with any intensity, not trying to block the shot or dive for the ball or get the rebound or move into play defense or, take a charge or whatever the case may be. There may be so many discrepancies between how sports are played now and how they were played in the 90s, whether that be with the NBA, the NFL, the MLB. But you can't argue that those guys every single night in the 1990s were playing hard. And they were playing through being hurt, whether they're hurt and injured. That's a huge difference. You're not going to play through an injury. You need to recover. You need to get healthy. But sometimes you got to play a little banged up, and you got to get after it when you need to, because you're playing for something bigger than yourself. I've talked about culture a lot on this show. And culture starts with each individual taking responsibility for them and saying, I'm going to own my role to the best of my ability, no matter what. And it's for the team. It's for something bigger than myself. And the NBA has just done a horrible job with putting out just a lackluster product that's not real, that's not intense. And the players just look like they're not playing for anything. No pride. They already get a bunch of money, and people just don't want to see that garbage. They're tuning in to the college basketball, which is great. A bunch of athletes getting after it. And that's really all I have to say. I don't watch the NBA, but this is what I know about, my sporting background and, my professional wrestling, and just why viewership is tanking so much. And talking to my friends that honestly love the NBA, but have tuned out of it because of things like this, where it's just so lackluster and it just lacks intensity. And it's just not something that people care to tune into when they can spend their time or money literally watching anything else, because there's so many options. You have to present something that's real and something that has something that people want to invest in actually. And so then you look at the NHL and what they were able to accomplish recently with this Four Nations sort of face-off thing. The Four Nations Championship was the most watched hockey game since the 2010 Olympic gold medal game between Canada and the US, like over 27 million. But unfortunately, for us Americans, we lost again on Thursday night. It was kind of like, deja vu, right? You go back to the gold medal game in 2010, ended with a Sidney Crosby overtime goal for Canada. And then Connor McDavid found the back of the net in overtime to give Team Canada the title in the Four Nations Championship game. With that victory, Canada moves to 14-4 against the US in this like best on best format. That included wins in the game I mentioned in the 2010 contest, the 2002 Olympic gold medal game, and that included also the 24 Olympic semifinal, right? Nonetheless, like the American-Canada hockey rivalry is awesome. The tournament, like they were afraid that it would not create that much buzz or people wouldn't be interested in it, but it has energized the sport, and it was like a resounding success. Why? Because the NHL, no matter what, is played with intensity. Again, I don't really watch the NHL. I've been to a few games live, but I understand that every single time those guys get on the ice, there is an expectation that they will play hard and that there will be a fight. And so they can't go into those games lackluster and play 50% like you can in the NBA and just like jog down the court and loosely put up a free throw and where no one fucking guards you and you shoot a shot and it's like, great. No, if you go into the NBA, if you go into the NHL, and you're going down there, someone's going to smack you, someone's going to hit you, someone's going to try and get into a fight with you. There's intensity no matter what, because there's pride in that. And I think that's why this Four Nations, championship face-off was awesome. People saw how intense and how real NHL was. Also, no matter what people want to say, people still have pride in the country that they live in. And I think that's cool to have pride in the country that you live in. That's amazing. I'm proud to be an American, and I forever always will be. And I think Canadians feel the same. And that face off is always cool. And, hopefully this energizes the American hockey scene, and we want to continue to get better at hockey here in America. What an awesome sport. And so it's just like you have this NHL, which is a game built on intensity and fighting. And every time the fans show up, they want to see that. I've got a bunch of friends who absolutely love the NHL, and they switched over from some of these other sports because they see that realness. They see that intensity. They see the passion and the purpose and the pride these guys play with every time they step out on the ice. And that's what the NBA is missing. Now, you go to a sport like Major League Baseball, it's hard to replicate that sort of intensity because there is no fights. The game is a bit longer. It's a bit more methodical. Like hockey is such fast paced and there's action happening all the time. And it's really hard to just keep track of that puck, which makes it an exciting game especially for young kids. And maybe they want to see a fight, whether they're young boys. And like, that's exciting too. And so really cool that four nations face off energized the NHL, and was a huge success. That's like a really cool idea considering like the NBA All-Star game, again, second lowest viewership, I think, of all time. And so it's interesting to look at those two sports that sort of are similar, that sort of not, but how can one is increasing and one is decreasing based on the realness and the intensity that they present out on the field, court, whatever you want to call it. And so speaking of baseball, let's move on to the best sport in the world, baseball. Major League Baseball. We're very, 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 very close to the start of the season. Very happy about that. Opening day is coming very soon. You can watch all 30 games. There's 30 teams, all 15 games. But excited about that. And we have some really sort of interesting news that the Yankees dropped their 49-year facial hair policy on one condition: no Duck Dynasty beards. I think this is actually a pretty big deal about tradition and culture and things of that nature. This is a sports show, but I like to relate all the sports back to our mindset because Champions Adjust is about a mindset. And so, yeah, we're talking about news and stuff, but everything relates back to how we think about things, how we perceive things, right? We don't have control of much, but we do have control of our attitude, our effort, and definitely our response. And our response to all of these things really determines our future. So speaking about the Yankees, you have legacy and tradition are really two words that carry a ton of weight around the New York Yankees organization, whether it's the absence of names on the back of the jerseys or the roll call from fans in the bleachers at the start of home games. There are certain decade-long rules and rituals associated with the Yankees culture that are believed to be unbendable. That's part of why it's so shocking when Yankees owner Hal Steinbrenner announced that the team had changed its no facial hair policy as upheld for nearly 50 years, a 49-year tradition. But there is a limit, obviously, to this facial hair policy. I said this no Duck Dynasty type stuff. Beards must be well groomed according to the new facial hair policy. And so this is what Garrett Cole had to say about it. He's looking for any edge he can get, talking about Steinbrenner and potentially changing the facial hair policy. He's looking for any edge he can get. Cole also said this: he certainly doesn't want to turn anybody away that could be impactful for us, the Yankees, but at the same time, maintaining our team look and integrity. Shaving can be a little mundane throughout the whole year and uncomfortable at times, but by and large, every year that I've been here, we all generally like the idea that we look good, we look clean, and we look, neat and tidy. So I think that there are some aspects that are not going to go away, but just a little bit of individual freedom in terms of being more comfortable is a nice balance. So like, it is good on the Yankees for updating a bit, but still keeping the Yanks culture intact because their culture is one of history and precedent and standard. And so anyone puts on the Yankees uniform understands that standard. The Yankees have set a culture over winning championships over a long period of time. And the facial hair and the no names in the back and all of these standards, they're not expectations and they're not rules. They're standards that the Yankees hold all of their players to, are very important to how they perform on the field. Now, so it's interesting to see how they crumbled in the World Series based on all of these things that they set. But you can still see that even the best players in the world at times still crumble and fall apart. And so we'll see how the Yankees recover from that going into this season, as I believe their team is better than they were last year, even without Juan Soto. They got a bunch of new additions, and I think that creates a better chemistry and culture for their team. And I think doing this facial hair thing also creates a better environment, right? Because even the guys they sign now can have that individual freedom, that individual creativity to express themselves. Because that's really also what sports are about. Sports are about being able to creatively express yourself yourself in an athletic manner. And the facial hair and the way you dress and the way you move is part of that authentic expression. I talked about this earlier. Like, fans want to see things that are real and authentic. And so if you can combine the Yankees' unprecedented standard and culture with some individual creativity, you really get that mesh of the fans being able to connect with their players, but also still in line with the Yankees standard and culture. And I think that's really cool. And I think that's why it's big news. It's not just like, oh yeah, cool, the Yankees changed their facial hair policy. No, it's like about what we can do to keep updating and refreshing these ideas of what's real, what's authentic, and how can we best suit our players to give them the best chance to perform on the field while also maintaining a high standard of excellence and team unity and chemistry. And so that's really important. And then the next major news we heard from Major League Baseball was that ESPN and Major League Baseball are parting ways and will end their decades-long partnership after the 2025 season. So the 2025 season will be the last time Major League Baseball and ESPN are partnered. They announced this on Thursday, a little less than obviously a month before the start of the season, which we're all very excited about here at Champions Adjust. But the network first aired an MLB game in 1990, but the league said in a statement that it is dismayed at how ESPN has pared back its baseball coverage. Now, the argument there from ESPN is probably that no one gives a shit about baseball, but no one might care about baseball because the way you present it on ESPN, the way you talk about it, your host, like Stephen A. Smith, is not a good steward for the game of baseball, right? He's not going to talk about it the way he talks about basketball or football because he's just not excited about it. So ESPN never did a great job of presenting the best that baseball had to offer and presenting the stars and the beauty of it and the intricacies of baseball and how people can get involved in the sport and more about the players and the backstories and why this thing is so cool. And so, yeah, I think both parties just like wanted to move on from it. And the move amounts to like a really big bet by Major League Baseball on its ability to attract a new investment by different company, whether that involves streaming or traditional cable companies. The deal between ESPN and MLB had been reported a $550 million per season, the league's second largest package of national TV rights, and was set to expire after the 2026 season. The deal included the airing of 30 games nationally, 25 of which Sunday Night Baseball, the opening night game each season, and the Home Run Derby. MLB did draw its largest live attendance figures in 7 years last season, drawing more than 71.3 million fans into ballparks in 2024. So NBA is declining, MLB is inclining, regardless of what that dummy, Cam Newton has to say about baseball. Because again, he's not a baseball person. He doesn't know anything about baseball and shouldn't be. Not that he shouldn't be. He's allowed to comment on literally anything he wants to comment on, but he's also allowed to get critiqued for his bad takes. Anyways, did a whole episode on that. Just thought I'd mention it because the numbers show that MLB drew its largest live attendance in 7 years last season. 71.3 million fans went to ballparks in 2024. It also saw jumps in television viewership, including on ESPN's Sunday Night Baseball, which is typically where the premier game of the week and has been a staple of baseball weekly viewing schedule for years. And so baseball viewership, yes, is on the incline. Yes, with some tweaks in the game and try to make it a little bit faster and a little more fast paced so people can get into the game and they're not there watching for 3 hours. So it's under 3 hours. And there's some things that have been good, some things that have been bad, but like the beauty and the essence of the game is still there. And hopefully more and more people continue to watch baseball because it's a beautiful sport that you can get into. It's America's pastime. And it's really, I'm biased because baseball is my favorite sport in the whole world, but I really think that can be for everyone, especially a family just wanting to go to a game and enjoy this and that. And all this stuff is super cool. So while the NBA viewership declines, hopefully MLB will take over that spot. And so if you think the $550 million deal is too much for MLB, like how bad is ESPN's $2.6 billion a year deal for NBA, right? Wow, that's the worst deal in sports history as NBA viewership continues to plummet. But they're going to stick with that for whatever, reason. And so think about that and the tanking NBA viewership and again on the rising MLB viewership because of superstars like Shohei Ohtani who have amassed just an international audience and the World Baseball Classic and baseball being back in the Olympics and all of these stars who are carrying the league moving forward are amazing, and the connection with all these international players and expanding baseball everywhere into the world so everyone can enjoy the sport of baseball is fantastic. So moving forward from that, you have entering the 2025 season. MLB is enjoying a tremendous momentum led by, again, generational talent on the field and entertaining brand of baseball due to some rule changes that have been good, which have improved the pace of play and action on the field. This is what sort of the league said, and I agree with those sentiments. The results have generated an increase in attendance, viewership, streaming, international growth is a huge one, and overall fan engagement, because MLB, again, has to do an amazing job with their social media to highlight some of these players that are exceptionally cool. And people want to get to know the player they're cheering for, so they have that authentic, raw, real investment in that player. So they want to cheer for them. They want to come to the games. They want to buy the jerseys and the hats and all of that stuff. Basically trying to take every playbook from, the WWE and how they get their fans invested and move it into Major League Baseball or NFL or NHL, so that you have this idea of sports entertainment, right? The positive energy around the sport of baseball has led to significant interest from both traditional media companies and streaming services who would like to obtain the rights to MLB games. Also, the statement added later, like Major League Baseball will be exploring these opportunities for a new agreement, which would start in the 2026 season, again, following the conclusion of ESPN's agreement at the end of the year. The market for media rights to live sports contests has become increasingly lucrative in recent years, as sports remain some of the only consistent ratings draws for cable and broadcast networks. I mean, Netflix seems to want to be buying everything. They're trying to take over NFL. They already have WWE. They've had some NFL games this year. You see stuff on Amazon Prime and all of these places. So I wonder where Major League Baseball will fall. I just hope it leads to more people watching and enjoying the game of baseball, because it's such a beautiful sport. And it would behoove Major League Baseball to do more stuff about why the game is so great, because at times the game is slow. The game can be quote unquote boring, but if you understand some of the more intricate details about the game of pitch selection and why they're moving to the bullpen and why they're facing this guy, or why they're walking this guy instead of facing that guy, or why they potentially might bunt here, or why they shift the guys over, or why this guy continues to hit to this side of the field and not this side of the field, or why they're throwing this guy inside and not outside, why they throw a breaking ball in this count. Some of the more little tiny details of the game to draw fans in a little bit deeper. So when you get to the seventh inning and they bring in the reliever to face the left-handed reliever to face Juan Soto, why? What's the number? What's the difference between him facing a right-handed hitter and a left-handed hitter? Why is that better? Why is that an advantage? Why do you save that guy for that situation? So many why questions, so that when the game starts to get a little bit slow and there's no runs scored or yada, 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 fans are starting to understand why they're doing certain things, because it's not a fast-paced game like your NHL or NBA or NFL, right? There's smaller details, and there's a philosophy and a methodology to why each move is there, especially early in the game. I mean, especially late in the game, excuse me. And then you have the guys who are just going to hit home runs and make great plays and throw the ball 100 miles an hour, like Paul Skeens, and greatness like, Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge and Bobby Witt Jr. and all these great players who were carrying the game into the next generation. But people want to know why. And so they can get invested in that pitch, in that count. Oh, it's a 3-2 count, bases loaded. Why are the runners moving? Are they not going to get thrown out? Okay, they're moving because there's no other thing to happen. Either the ball's going to get put in play, it's going to be strike three, or the guy's going to walk. So they're getting a head start, but they got to make sure the pitcher goes home, because they could potentially pick off. Like all of these little tiny details that fans aren't aware of, they're just coming to see a home run. And a home run doesn't happen every single game, because it's absolutely really, really fucking hard to hit a home run. That's why when you see someone like Aaron Judge hit 60 home runs in a season, it's incredible. When someone hits 30 home runs in a season, it's incredible. When someone hits 25 home runs in a season, it's incredible. So trying to explain some of those cooler dynamics, that Major League Baseball could do a great job of that by doing some sort of social media campaign about some of those intricacies, so it draws people into the nuance and the details of baseball, so they're more willing to watch a 2.5-hour game or a 3-hour game or whatever the case may be. And so it's such a beautiful game. Happy to see that people are attending ballparks and going to ballparks. I only have 5 more ballparks left on my list of 30 that I haven't been to. Hopefully I can get there soon, whether it's me or when I have my future kids, maybe we go together. But it's such a beautiful game to share with your family. That's why it is America's pastime. And obviously I'm biased, but I think I've expressed my love for it enough here. And so MLB on the rise, NHL on the rise, NBA tanking, it is what it is. People connect to things that are real and authentic and are played with passion and intensity, and that could be parsed out into every domain of your life. So take that as you will, because that's all I have for you this week on the Champions Adjust Sports Talk Show. Remember, we are a mindset-centered sports performance brand with apparel, podcast, sports show, mental skills classes. So head over to champsadjust.com for all things Champions Adjust, and I'll see you guys next week for another Champions Adjust Sports Talk Show. Other than that, cheers. Have a good one. See you next time.